Hello. Today I'm joined by Maria Elena de la Garza, the Executive Director from the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County. Welcome, Maria Elena. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, just have a few questions we want to talk about. But first of all, I want to start, before coming the Executive Director, just kind of tell me about the history of Maria Elena and how you got to this point and how you got into community action.
Absolutely. So I've been in nonprofits a little over 32 years, and I've been at CAB for 10 years, but I have a long history with Community Action Board. I was a Head Start baby. And so that's what started my career in community action. And then my first job when I was in high school, I worked at Community Action and I took care of babies of agricultural workers. And so I'd get up at 5:30 in the morning and I'd go to the fairgrounds, and there was a little childcare facility there. And I would literally hold babies all day while their parents were out picking the fields. And then fast forward, when I was 8, I missed a really critical piece there. Community Action used to offer driving lesson classes in Spanish. My father died when I was 8, and my mom didn't speak English and didn't know how to drive. And so she went to CAB to take lessons on how to drive. And she got her driver's license because of CAB. And so, the Head Start, mom learning to drive, my first job, and then circling around years later to now be in this position as the executive director of this agency, to me is a heart connection like you wouldn't believe.
That's amazing, and that's one of the things we talk about in community action. Everybody has such a unique story, and I know we've shared this before as a Head Start child myself. It's just so wonderful to see, folks that have that structure to understand what it feels like to sit on both sides of the table per se, or to be on different sides of the room. So it's really exciting. So now you're the Executive Director for the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County. Tell us a little bit about the uniqueness of your agency.
Absolutely. So we are in the heart of South County in Watsonville, California, and we have programs that extend from the North Coast, which is in a little town, beautiful beach town by the name of Davenport, and we're the only social service agency in that community. That community is made up of people who've retired. We have a senior community there, and it's also surrounded by 11 ranchos, so farm worker ranches that house about 250 migrant workers and agricultural workers. And so our agency is the only agency that provides services there. We provide food distribution. We help people fill out their Medi-Cal applications. We help in crisis response. That area was hit very hard with fires. So not only were we dealing with the pandemic, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago now, we were also dealing with fires. And so our agency, our Davenport Resource Service Center, was critical in helping support the families in that community, and also serving as a bridge between the English-speaking systems there to support the families and our Spanish-speaking community. And so we did a lot of working as a bridge in helping to address community needs there. We also have services in the city of Santa Cruz, and we've just merged 3 of our more critical services. Our rental assistance program has merged with our immigration legal services program, has merged with our day worker center. And so we are now all under one roof in the city of Santa Cruz, providing support to folks in that community, right? Our day worker center has been around about 10 years, and those are services that help people who stand outside of Home Depot get dignified work and dignified wages. And so we're a job matching service. And we work with, we have about over 400 day workers registered. And that community has been extremely impacted by not only COVID, but by the natural disasters. Imagine day labor, if you're sheltering in place, there's no need for day labor. And so that community has been impacted through what our county has dealt with and what our nation has dealt with, and has been severely impacted. In the city of Watsonville, we provide our largest program that we provide is our immigration legal services, and we have 4 immigration lawyers at pro bono to help provide consultations and support for folks. We do citizenship, we do DACA, and we really try to support the immigrant community. We see about 13,000 people as an agency annually. And through the Immigration Project, we touch about a little over 6,000 of them. And so in our community, immigration legal services is an incredible need and an incredible support given to the agricultural workers, our essential workers, right? We also have youth services, youth employment and adult employment. We work with adults who are struggling to find employment, second chance folks, and kids who are impacted by violence, kids who are impacted by substance abuse. We have Luna y Sol Familia Center that really provides wraparound services to the community. And lastly, we do emergency services and emergency payment programs. And what we have found, and especially in the last 3 years, that crisis response has been an incredible need in our community. You know, we've been hit by not just COVID, but with fires and floods and river breaches. And so right now it's a really critical time for our county, and the work of community action is to come in and fill the gaps. We have to fill the gaps. Our county partners, our system partners are there and provide support, but most of the folks that we serve may not be eligible because of documentation status, may not have access because they don't speak the language. And we're not talking about English and Spanish, we're also talking about indigenous languages. And so we're really proud to step into that gap and try to connect the services to those communities in a way that is culturally respectful, in a way that is centered around equity. That's the work that Community Action does in Santa Cruz County.
So you talked about a lot of the opportunities and the services you guys create, and it definitely matches, the families in your community that you want to serve. One of the conversations we've had prior is about how you take your agency to continue to make sure that it matches the community it serves, not just in those services that you just spoke on, but also in the way that you shape the agency.
Absolutely.
One of the things we talk about in community action is constant maximum feasible participation, so that the families that we're giving opportunities to have not only a seat at the table, but a leadership seat at the table. Your agency under your leadership has gone through a pretty major shift to make sure that occurs. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about how you did that process? Maybe even, what drove you to do that process?
Absolutely. That's such an important question and has been at the heart of the work that we've done to move the agency forward. Mm-hmm. When I first came on to the agency, I had a very clear message from the board. And the message from the board was to ensure that the agency reflected the community that we served. I was a newly Latina, executive director, and I understood why that was important. I understood that representation matters. I understood that when the people who are serving the community, not just the frontline staff, but the coordinators and the directors and the grant writers and the administration and the fiscal people, just as important, the governance, right? The board of directors. If we could come with lived experience, with understanding what our community deals with on a daily basis, that we would be a stronger, better agency in responding to their needs. And so for us, it was important work. We shifted what our agency looked like to reflect the community on all levels of the agency. And it wasn't overnight. It took us about 8 years to get there. And it took us to understand, for example, as job positions opened up, and doing the analysis to understand why that position needed to be bilingual and bicultural in a way that our agency hadn't understood before. And so, for example, I remember having conversations with the personnel committee and with the management team saying, that youth program coordinator needs to know how to speak Spanish. And the pushback was, well, all the kids speak English, why? And I would say, yeah, but if mom needs something,
right,
mom needs to be able to communicate, and we need to be able to understand in her language how to support her. And so the shift started happening one position at a time.
Well, that's amazing. And, one of the things we pride ourselves in Community Action is being that trusted source, that trusted messenger, if you will. And tell me a little bit about how you've been able to do that, because a lot of what you do is about families being able to trust you, and frankly, local and national government agencies trusting you to have these dollars to create these opportunities. Talk about what you focused on to make sure that trust is always there.
Absolutely. It's the legacy of Community Action. We are the trusted partners. We are on the ground when something happens. We are in Sacramento when we're advocating for a need. I see us as being in between systems and grassroots. Our position is to hold those two areas and to bring them together. And so for us, it's about building our network, right? Building our network with our partners, making sure that people understand who we are and what we do and the services that we offer, making sure that we're out there. If there is a young person who loses their life, CAP is out there doing the vigil. We have to be. That's why we exist, to help support the community when it's most in need. And so for me, that's the importance of understanding the role of Community Action and understanding our mission, being mission-based, and ensuring that every level of the agency understands the grain of sand that is each individual contribution, right? We all bring in our granito de arena. We all bring in our grain of sand that creates a movement, right? That creates the ocean, that creates the shore, right? And so we need to understand where we stand in that network, and show up and stand on our mission. That's who we are.
And you talked about growing the network, and I'll get into that. First, we've talked about how where your agency got to this point and what they're doing now. What do you see over the next few years? What is the vision if you're looking at your specific agency?
Yeah.
Where do you see it going to?
Sure, I think that's a really good question. and I do not suffer with lack of vision.
Okay, good.
I think that for us, the board's vision, the agency staff vision, the community vision is to continue being at the forefront of responding to community needs. We know that. That's not going to change, right? But how do we begin to continue the legacy of Community Action across the nation and across the state to impact policy, to change the systems that have traditionally created inequities, to change the systems that keep vulnerable communities vulnerable. That's our role, right? And so in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, that's not going to change. We still have to push. And sometimes we're feeling like we're pushing the boulder up the mountain because those policies are in the culture of who we are as a nation, or who we are as a state, or who we are as a county, right? It's hard to have those conversations. It's hard to talk about racism. It's hard to talk about inequities. And it's Community Action's role to lead those efforts and to show up and to be there. So you're going to ask me what I see in 10 years. I see a more equitable future. I see a more equitable community. I see more resourced programs. I see less people who are vulnerable. I see more economic opportunity for the families who need it the most. That's what I see.
And I should have mentioned this before. Not only are you're the executive director of your agency, you also serve on the California Community Action Partnership Association board as a committee chair. You're extremely involved in a lot of national committees. So with your experience and your time and your involvement, what do you see even more for just the Community Action Network as a whole, not just with in your local community?
Yeah. David, we need to keep evolving. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep understanding that in order for Community Action to continue to gain strength in the movement that we've been doing for 60 years, right? To continue to gain strength in the movement, we have to understand how we shift with what's coming, right? How do we shift? How do we face those challenges that we have faced as a network and as a nation, and what's our role in that response, right? I want to talk about equity. I want, our jobs will be done when there's no longer people dealing with poverty. Our jobs will be done when our agencies reflect the communities that we serve. We're not there yet. We're getting there. We're starting. Yep. We've taken baby steps, but we're not there yet. And it matters. We participate in Ledge Day, right, which is a really important statewide effort to connect with our elected officials. But I will tell you that it makes a difference when I walk into an office and that elected official represents the communities that I serve and looks like the communities that I serve. It's a whole different conversation.
Sure.
When I walk into an office and there is not representation, it's a whole different conversation. My role is to educate. My role is to be patient, to help people understand in certain circles. If representation is there, I don't have to waste time educating. People know. They know the experience. They relate to the experience, and they understand that policies can make changes happen that will impact vulnerable communities. And so equity is a big word, and we're all using it, and we're all throwing it around. And I want to challenge the Community Action Network to think about, how do we make it real locally? If we can do it locally at our own agencies, and then we can do it, in our counties, and then we can do it statewide, and then we can do it nationally, we'll continue that movement and make a shift. I have faith and I have optimism that we can do this work, and it's going to continue to be based on relationships, respect, understanding, being allies. We got to work together. We got to be allies in this work, and caring enough about each other to create space and platform for other people.
I want to jump back. One of the conversations we've had previously and through some different committee work and some different is specifically around language justice and how important it is to that. That is to us as a network, because we talk about, and you said it's not just English, it's not just Spanish. There's languages. There's lots of languages. And as we see a mass amount of opportunity for families that we should be working with, that we should give, that we should open that door, what do we still see? Because again, I know we're probably going on a few years now in this project where we're trying to bring it to the light. What do you see that's currently still the gap there that slows that progress or slows that understanding for our network?
Yeah. It feels like we haven't even started, right? We haven't even started. We talk about language justice and why that's important in the community where I come from, are that there are segments in the community that are that the systems that exist are so far away from those communities that it could be a breached river or a fire, and there are people who don't get evacuated because they don't get the message in their language. There were strawberry pickers who were picking strawberries in the heat of the fires because they didn't get the message that the air quality was unhealthy for them. There were people who returned back to their homes after the Pajaro Valley River breach and used the water that was toxic with sewage and pesticides because they didn't get the message in their language. That's what language justice is all about. How can we as a nation and as a country, as a state, as a county, how can we be okay with people being impacted by situations and events in crisis, and that there are no systems in place to help them respond? I'm speechless as it comes out. How can we still be here?
Right.
And that's in my little county, right? Wherever community action is, what is the need that we're not seeing because we don't have language access?
Right.
Who are the people that we're not talking to because we don't know how to talk to them? I know what it is in my county. Do you know what it is in yours?
Right. Yeah, that's really powerful, and I appreciate your passion on that. I know, again, that's a project we've been.
I got to say, one of the things that I forgot to share that we do, and my staff would be very upset with me, is our housing and homelessness programs.
Oh, for sure.
And that, I have to give light to that work. Because it's innovative. You know, we have a transitional work program with our homeless folks in our community, our Watsonville Works program, where we've partnered with the county and the city, and we make it happen, and people are working and are earning, you know, are earning stipends and are able to give back to their community. I have to give voice to that work, especially in crisis response. It was our homeless community, it was our day workers, and it was our volunteer Spanish-speaking parents who were out there making 80,000 sandbags for the community. This is the story that President Biden missed. You know, I love President Biden, and he missed the story of who was every day in the pouring rain making 80,000 sandbags.
Wow.
Right? And so I have to give voice to our homeless programs, to our homelessness and housing programs, to our programs that support foster care kids aging out of the system who are vulnerable, who we know, there's pipelines to prison with that population. And again, Community Action's role is to help support those young people, right? And so I share that with you because I don't want to forget that work. But I think what's important, and I would say to the future of Community Action, right? I would say, let's make sure that we understand our communities and that we make visible the invisible.
All right, absolutely.
I think that's our role, David.
Well, that's wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you to Maria Elena and the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.